Helen Wright hated the night shift. The freighter Morningstar carried medical supplies through empty space, and empty space meant nothing but silence and her own thoughts. She sat at her communications console, watching numbers scroll across screens that never changed. 3 more days until they reached the delivery point. 3 more days of nothing. Then the speakers crackled. Helen jerked upright. Static filled her ears, broken and harsh. She grabbed the headset and pressed it tight against her head. Through the noise, she heard something else. A voice. No, many voices screaming. Her fingers flew across the console, trying to clean up the signal. The computer struggled with the language, showing error after error. Not human. Not any of the common trading species either. But between the static and the alien words, one sound came through clear. Children crying. Helen's breath caught in her throat. She boosted the signal strength and ran it through every translation program the Morningstar had. Most of it stayed gibberish, but a few words started appearing on her screen in standard. Help, please, death. And one phrase that repeated over and over. Someone answer. Explosions thundered through the transmission. Someone screamed in pain. Helen heard running feet, panic, the sound of something collapsing. Then the voice came again, clearer this time, speaking broken standard like they had learned it from an old textbook. This is Refuge. We are dying. Please, is anyone listening? They came without warning. They are killing everyone. Our children are burning. Please, someone help us. Anyone, please. The transmission cut to static. Helen sat frozen, her hands shaking on the console. She played it again. And again. Each time, the sounds of those children crying tore something inside her chest. Each time that desperate voice begged into the void. She checked the signal source. A small moon called Refuge, 3 days away at their current speed. 3 days. How many would die in 3 days? Helen saved the recording and ran to find Captain Davis. She found him in the cargo bay, checking inventory with their engineer. Davis looked up as Helen came running in, and his expression shifted from annoyance to concern. What's wrong? Helen held up her data pad. You need to hear this. She played the recording. Davis listened with his arms crossed, his face growing harder with each second. When it ended, he closed his eyes. Where? Refuge. 3 days away. We're a cargo ship, Helen. We have medical supplies, not weapons. We have 12 crew, not soldiers. I know. If something out there is killing an entire settlement, what exactly do you think we can do? Helen played the recording again. Let him hear those children. Let him hear that voice begging for anyone to answer. Davis rubbed his face with both hands. He looked at the medical supplies stacked around them. Bandages, medicine, blood synthesizers, equipment meant to save lives. 3 days, he said quietly. 3 days. Davis pulled out his own communicator and called the crew together. All 12 of them gathered in the cargo bay. He played the recording for everyone. Some looked away. Some cried. Nobody said they should ignore it. I won't order anyone to come, Davis said. This isn't what you signed up for. We're haulers, not heroes. But I'm changing course to Refuge. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle at the next beacon. Nobody moved. Davis nodded once. Then we go. Helen, send that recording to Earth and the nearest military outpost. If we're flying into hell, I want someone to know about it. Helen returned to her console and encrypted the message with the highest priority code she had. She attached the full recording and every detail about Refuge's location. Then she added her own message at the end. This is Helen Wright, Communications Officer, Civilian Freighter Morningstar. We intercepted a distress call from a moon called Refuge. Someone is killing everyone there. We're going to help, but we're just a cargo ship. Please send someone with guns. Please send someone who can fight. These people are dying and they need more than what we can give them. She hit send and watched the message burst away faster than light, carrying its desperate plea across the stars. The Morningstar changed course. Helen watched their trajectory shift on the navigation screen, watched them turn toward Refuge, toward whatever horror waited there. She couldn't sleep that night. She kept playing the recording, kept hearing those voices, kept wondering if they were already dead, kept wondering what kind of enemy could make people sound that terrified. On the second day, she picked up more signals from Refuge's direction. Debris. Lots of it. The computer identified pieces of satellites, communications equipment, orbital platforms. Everything that might call for help had been destroyed. Helen's hands tightened into fists. Someone wanted Refuge cut off from the galaxy. Someone wanted to make sure no help could come. Someone wanted to kill in the dark where nobody could see. On the third day, refuge appeared on their long-range sensors. Davis called everyone to the bridge. They gathered around the main screen and watched as the image resolved. Refuge should have shown city lights, orbital traffic, the signs of civilization. Instead, they saw fires. Massive fires burning across entire continents. The atmosphere glowed orange in places, poisoned and choking. Helen looked at the destruction and felt something cold settle in her stomach. They were too late. They had to be too late. Then Davis pointed at a cluster of small signals moving away from the moon. Life pods. There are survivors. The Morning Star surged forward, engines burning hot as they raced toward those tiny flickering signals, toward the people who had sent that desperate message into the void, toward the ones who had asked if anyone was listening. Helen whispered to herself, to those survivors, to the dead left behind. "We heard you. We're coming." The first survivor pod looked dead when they pulled it into the cargo bay. Scorch marks covered its hull and one side had been melted into twisted metal. Helen watched through the window as Davis and 3 crew members worked to pry open the hatch. Smoke poured out when it finally cracked open. 2 bodies fell out, small bodies covered in gray fur. Their large eyes closed forever. A third figure stumbled out after them, barely alive. The alien looked almost like a cat if cats walked on 2 legs and wore clothes. Its fur was matted with blood and burns covered half its body. Helen ran to the medical bay as they carried the survivor in. The alien was mumbling something over and over in its own language. The computer struggled to translate. "The children," it kept saying. "Save the children." They pulled in 4 more pods over the next hour. 18 survivors total from what had been a moon of millions. Most were injured. All were traumatized. They stared at nothing or cried softly or just sat in shock. The aliens called themselves Quillans. They were traders and artists, Helen learned from the computer's translation files. They made beautiful things and sold them across the sector. They had never hurt anyone. An older Quillan named Pym seemed to be their leader, or maybe just the only one strong enough to talk. He sat in the medical bay with bandages covering his arms and chest. His whiskers drooped with exhaustion. "You came," Pym said in broken standard. "No one else came. We called everyone. No one answered." Helen knelt beside his bed. "We heard you. What happened?" Pym's eyes filled with tears. "The Ravagers. They came 3 days ago. No warning. No demands. Just death." "Who are the Ravagers?" Pym pulled out a small datapad from his torn jacket. His hands shook as he activated it. Images appeared on the screen. Helen felt her blood go cold. The Ravagers looked like nightmares made flesh. They stood twice as tall as humans on thick, muscled legs. 4 arms ending in claws. Heads that looked like skulls wrapped in leather. Their ships were black and covered in spikes like they were built to inflict fear. "They travel from system to system," Pym explained. "They take everything. Resources. Technology. Slaves if you are young and strong enough to work. If you fight back, they kill you. If you are old or sick or a child, they kill you. They killed my grandchildren in front of me." His voice broke. Helen wanted to look away from the pain in his eyes, but forced herself to watch, to witness, to remember. "They have destroyed 26 worlds in this region," Pym continued. "Everyone knows about them. Everyone fears them. When they come, people run or surrender. No one fights. No one wins. Did you ask for help before?" "Yes, we sent messages to 4 other species. 3 never answered. 1 said they were sorry but could not risk angering the Ravagers." Pym laughed bitterly. "So we burned alone." Helen looked at the images on the datapad. Weapons that burned entire city blocks. Ships that could crack a planet's crust. Soldiers that killed without mercy or hesitation. How many of them are there? "At Refuge?" "Maybe 50 ships. But they have more, many more. They are like a disease that spreads through the galaxy, and no one has found a cure." Davis entered the medical bay. His face was grim. "We need to leave now. I'm picking up new signals approaching Refuge." "The Ravagers?" "Has to be. They're coming back, probably to pick over what's left." Helen helped Pym to his feet. The old Quillan gripped her arm, his claws digging in slightly. "You will run now," he said. "Like the others." "I understand. You are not warriors. You cannot fight them." Helen opened her mouth to answer but couldn't. What could she say? He was right. They were a cargo ship with medical supplies. They had no weapons, no training, no chance against the monsters in those images. They loaded all the survivors into the Morning Star's passenger compartments. Helen stayed with them, trying to make them comfortable, trying not to see the hopelessness in their eyes. These were the lucky ones. They had survived. They had escaped. And they knew millions of others had not. The Morning Star pulled away from refuge as the new signals grew closer. Davis pushed the engines as hard as he dared. Helen went back to her console and looked at the long-range sensors. She wished she hadn't. Through the view screen, she could see refuge clearly now. And she could see the Ravager ships descending on it like vultures on a corpse. Huge mining vessels landed on the surface, tearing into the ground. Smaller ships swept through the cities, taking anything of value. They were strip mining the entire moon, harvesting its resources like refuge had never been home to living, breathing people. Helen recorded everything. Every ship. Every action. Every casual cruelty. She added it all to the message she had sent to Earth and transmitted it again with one addition. They're not just attacking. They're erasing. Please, someone has to stop them. She found Pym in the passenger bay, staring out a small window at his dying home. Helen sat beside him, not knowing what to say. Your people? Pym asked quietly. These humans. Do you have warriors? Yes, strong ones. Helen thought about Earth's history. The wars, the weapons, the terrible things humans had done to each other before they learned better. Yes, very strong. Will they come? Helen looked at the old Quillen's face, at the desperate hope flickering in his dying eyes. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to promise that help was coming. But she was just a communications officer on a cargo ship. She had no idea if anyone on Earth was even listening. Pym seemed to read her silence. He patted her hand gently with his bandaged paw. It is okay, he whispered. You tried. That is more than anyone else did. He closed his eyes and stopped breathing 20 minutes later. His last words were the names of his grandchildren. Admiral Richard Foster had not slept in 30 hours. He stood in the command center of Terran Defense Headquarters, watching Helen Wright's recordings for the 5th time. Around him, 20 of Earth's highest-ranking military officers sat in silence. The only sound was the screaming from the recordings. When it ended, nobody spoke. Foster looked at each face in the room. Some looked angry. Some looked sick. All of them looked at him waiting. Opinions, Foster said. General Park spoke first. It is not our fight. Refuge is 8 weeks away at maximum fleet speed. The Ravagers are not threatening human space. We have treaties to honor, borders to defend. We cannot police the entire galaxy. Agreed, added Admiral Stone. Our fleet is spread thin as it is. Pulling ships for a rescue mission that far out would leave gaps in our own defenses. Foster nodded slowly. Anyone else? Colonel Webb raised his hand. Sir, with respect to my colleagues, I disagree. We have the strength. We have the ships. These Quillen people asked for help and no one came. No one even tried. That is not our responsibility, Park said. Then whose is it? Webb shot back. We spent 200 years rebuilding after we nearly destroyed ourselves. We swore we would be better. We swore we would never let atrocities happen again, not anywhere, not to anyone. That was about Earth, Stone argued. About humans. These are aliens. Foster walked to his desk and pulled out a data chip. He plugged it into the main display. Images filled the screens. Old images. Historical images that every human knew but tried not to remember. Burning cities. Mass graves. Children's shoes piled in mountains. Execution chambers. Mushroom clouds. The worst moments of human history displayed in stark detail. Never again, Foster said quietly. That is what we said when we saw these images. When we realized what we had done to ourselves. Never again would we let innocents die while we stood by. Never again would we ignore the screams of the helpless. We did not say never again to humans only. We said never again. Period. The room stayed silent. Foster continued. I have read every treaty, every law, every rule of engagement we have. Nothing in them says we must abandon our principles the moment they become inconvenient. Nothing says we only protect humans. But the cost, Park said. The risk. What if we fail? What if we lose ships? Lose people? What if we do nothing? Foster asked. What happens to us if we hear someone crying for help and we decide it is not worth the effort? What do we become? He played Helen's message again. Let them hear her voice. Let them hear her begging for someone with guns to come help. Let them hear Pym's last words recorded in the Morning Star's logs. That old man died believing no one cared, Foster said. He died thinking the galaxy is full of cowards who will let monsters kill children as long as those monsters stay far enough away. Is he right? Is that what we are? Webb stood up. No, sir. That is not what we are. One by one, the others stood as well. Even Park. Even Stone. Foster looked at them all and felt something shift in his chest. Pride. Determination. The bone-deep certainty that what came next was right, even if it was hard. We go, he said. We take the fight to these ravagers and we show them that the age of unopposed predators is over. We show the galaxy that there is at least one species that will answer the call. The next 18 hours moved like an avalanche. Orders flew across every human military channel. Ships broke from their patrols and turned toward Earth. Crew members on leave were recalled. Reservists activated. The shipyards that built Earth's fleet burned with sudden activity. Foster watched it all from his office window. In orbit above Earth, the fleet gathered. 47 warships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. 12 carrier groups with hundreds of fighters. 20 hospital ships. 30 supply vessels. 40 civilian ships that volunteered to come along, bringing extra medical supplies, food, and materials to help rebuild. 200 ships total. The largest human fleet ever assembled. They called it Operation Guardian. The flagship would be the Retribution, a dreadnought-class warship that measured 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Foster would command from her bridge. The name felt appropriate. They were bringing retribution for refuge, for Pym, for those children who died crying for help that never came. The weapons loaded onto those ships would have terrified humans of the past. Railguns that could punch through a mountain, missiles that could crack a moon in half, point defense systems that could shoot a bullet out of the air from 1,000 kilometers away, energy weapons that turned matter into ash. Humanity had spent 2 centuries learning to destroy itself perfectly. Now they would use that terrible knowledge for something better. Foster recorded a message to be broadcast when they arrived at Ravager space. He kept it simple. To the Ravagers and anyone else listening, you attacked people who asked for mercy. You killed children who begged for help. You thought no one would answer their call. You were wrong. Humanity heard them. We are coming. We are bringing every gun, every ship, every soldier we have. The age of predators is over. You have one chance to stand down. Only one. If you refuse, you will learn why humans do not lose wars. This is your only warning. He saved the recording and walked to the shuttle that would take him to the Retribution. The fleet launched 6 hours later. 200 ships moving as one, jumping into faster-than-light travel. Moving toward a fight 8 weeks away. Moving toward people who thought the galaxy had abandoned them. Foster stood on the bridge of the Retribution as they jumped. He thought about Helen Wright, still hauling survivors in her little cargo ship. He thought about Pym, dying with the names of his grandchildren on his lips. He thought about all the Quillans who had sent that desperate signal into space hoping anyone was listening. We heard you, Foster whispered to the stars, and we are coming. Warlord Greshk drank deep from his victory cup and watched refuge burn on the main display. The Quillan moon had been profitable. Good metals in the crust, useful technology in their cities, even a few young ones strong enough to sell as labor slaves. Another successful harvest. His command ship Bloodtide hung in orbit while the mining vessels stripped the surface bare. In 3 more days there would be nothing left but rock and ash. Then they would move on to the next target. Greshk's species, the Ravagers, had been doing this for generations. 26 worlds conquered in this sector alone. Hundreds more across the galaxy. It was simple work. Find a weak species, take what they have, move on. No one ever fought back hard enough to matter. No one ever made them pay a real price. Warlord, his sensor officer called out. Detecting incoming ships. Greshk barely looked up. How many? Reading multiple signatures. They are still far out. Maybe more refugees trying to run. Let them go. We have enough slaves. Greshk poured another cup. Unless they have cargo worth taking? The sensor officer went quiet. His hands moved across his console, checking and rechecking. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Warlord, these readings. I have never seen this configuration before. What configuration? Unknown class. Unknown origin. But they are big, very big. And there are many of them. They are not slowing down. Greshk stood and walked to the sensor display. He looked at the readings and felt the first small twist of concern. The officer was right. These ships were huge. military grade, and they were coming fast. How many? Still counting. At least 50 capital ships. More smaller vessels. They are in attack formation. Greshk's warriors gathered around the display, their forearms flexing with anticipation. His second-in-command, Drask, laughed. Finally, someone wants to fight. How long has it been? Too long, Greshk agreed. He activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, battle formation. Let us see what these fools want before we crush them. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect synchronized formation. 50 warships in the front line. Carriers behind them launching fighters. Support vessels spreading to the flanks. It was the most organized military deployment Greshk had ever seen. Then the transmission came through, broadcasting on every channel in every known language including Ravager. This is Admiral Richard Foster of the Terran Defense Fleet. You attacked a peaceful people who begged for mercy. You killed their children. You ignored their calls for help. Humanity heard those calls. We are their answer. You have 1 minute to surrender or withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. Greshk listened to the message and felt something he had not experienced in years. Surprise. These humans had come here to fight for the Quillans, for aliens, for people not even their own species? Drask laughed again. They must be insane. We have 40 ships here. Battle-tested warriors. What can one species do? Greshk stared at the human fleet. At their perfect formation. At their weapons that his sensors said were unlike anything in their databases. At the sheer size of their response. They crossed the galaxy to answer a distress call. Greshk said slowly. That does not sound insane. That sounds dangerous. But pride would not let him back down. No Ravager fleet had ever retreated. No Ravager warlord had ever shown weakness. He activated his weapons and sent his response. This is Warlord Greshk of the Ravager fleet. We have conquered 26 worlds. We have destroyed civilizations that had 1,000 years of history. You are one species protecting aliens you do not even know. You will die here and your sacrifice will be forgotten. Attack if you dare. Foster's response came back immediately, cold and simple. You have made your choice. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on you. Because we will not. The human fleet opened fire. Greshk had been in hundreds of battles. He knew war like he knew breathing. But what happened in the next 40 minutes was not like any war he had ever seen. The humans did not charge. They did not rely on brute force. They moved like surgeons with knives, cutting his fleet apart piece by piece. Their fighters swarmed like insects but flew with precision that should have been impossible. Every movement coordinated. Every attack perfectly timed. His point defense systems could not keep up. The fighters slipped through and tore his gun emplacements to shreds. Their capital ships fired weapons Greshk did not understand. Railguns that punched through his armor like it was paper. Missiles that his countermeasures could not stop. Energy beams that burned through his shields and melted his hull underneath. His ships fired back, launching everything they had. But the humans had defense systems that swatted his missiles out of space like annoying flies. His energy weapons splashed against their shields and did nothing. Evasive maneuvers. Greshk roared. But it was too late. The human ships moved with speed that should not have been possible for vessels that large. They flanked his formation, surrounded his strongest ships, targeted his engines and weapons with ruthless efficiency. They did not waste shots. They did not miss. Every attack hit exactly where it would hurt most. Greshk watched 3 of his battlecruisers die in as many minutes. Watched 2 carriers break apart under concentrated fire. Watched his beautiful Ravager fleet, the terror of this entire sector, get torn to pieces by an enemy that fought like killing was a science they had perfected. His communications officer was screaming damage reports. Hull breaches on 20 ships. Engine failures on 15 more. Casualties climbing by the second. His warriors, the feared Ravagers who made entire species run, were dying. Return fire. All weapons! Kill them! But they could not. Every time his ships tried to target a human vessel, that vessel was already moving, already flanking, already firing from a new angle. The humans fought like they could see the future and knew where his ships would be before he did. The blood tide shook as something hit them hard. Alarm screamed. His sensor officer fell from his station, dead from an explosion that tore through the bridge. Drask lay on the floor bleeding, his forearms shredded by shrapnel. Warlord, his communications officer gasped. Half our fleet is gone. The rest are crippled. We cannot win this. Greshk looked at the display. At the human fleet still in perfect formation, at his own ships broken and burning. He had not lost a battle in 15 years. He had thought himself invincible. He had been wrong. Signal retreat, Greshk whispered. The surviving Ravager ships turned and ran, their engines burning as they fled into faster-than-light travel. Greshk sat in his command chair, surrounded by the dying, and felt fear for the first time in his life. The humans did not pursue. They just watched his fleet run. And somehow that was worse. Private Lena Cross had joined the Terran Marines to see the galaxy. She never expected her first real deployment would be liberating slave camps. The human fleet did not go home after refuge. Instead, they started hunting. Every Ravager outpost in the sector became a target. Every slave processing station, every supply depot. Admiral Foster made it clear. They would dismantle the Ravagers piece by piece until the threat was gone. Lena stood in the cargo bay of her transport as it descended toward a small asteroid station. Intelligence said the Ravagers were holding prisoners here. Her sergeant, a veteran named Rodriguez, checked his rifle one more time. "Remember," Rodriguez said to the 20 Marines in the bay, "Ravagers are big and mean, but they rely on fear. They have never fought someone who fights back properly. Show them what proper looks like." The transport landed hard. The doors blasted open. Lena rushed out with her squad into chaos. Ravager guards were scrambling to defensive positions, but they moved slowly, confused. They had not expected an attack. Why would they? No one had ever hit their slave camps before. Lena's training took over. She moved with her squad, covering angles, advancing through the corridors. Her rifle felt light in her hands. The Ravagers were huge, twice her size, with 4 arms and natural armor. But size meant nothing when you could not hit your target. She shot the first Ravager she saw in the leg joint where his armor was weak. He went down screaming. Her squad mate put 2 more rounds in his chest. The second Ravager tried to rush them. Rodriguez threw a flashbang that left the alien stumbling blind. They took him down in seconds. 15 minutes later, the station was secure. 8 Ravager guards dead, 3 captured, 0 human casualties. Lena helped open the holding cells. What she found inside made her want to cry and rage at the same time. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of different species. Quillans, the cat-like people from Refuge. Tall, thin beings with blue skin. Small creatures covered in scales. All of them were thin, beaten, terrified. Children huddled in corners. Adults stared with empty eyes that had given up hope. One small Quillan girl, maybe 6 years old, backed into a corner when Lena approached. The child's gray fur was matted and dirty. Burns covered her arms. Lena knelt down slowly and removed her helmet so the girl could see her face. She smiled as gently as she could. "Hey there, sweetheart. It is okay. You are safe now. We are here to take you home." The Quillan girl stared at her. "Are you angels?" Lena felt her heart break a little. "No, honey. We are just humans. And we do not let bullies hurt kids." She held out her hand. After a long moment, the little girl took it. Over the next month, the pattern repeated. Human ships would appear at a Ravager position, offer surrender. When refused, they would attack with overwhelming force. When they won, they freed prisoners and sent them home. But something unexpected started happening. Other species began joining the fight. The Quillans who survived Refuge volunteered as translators and guides. They knew the sector and wanted revenge. The Trell, an insectoid species that had lost a colony to the Ravagers, offered their fast scout ships. The massive Kelmar, slow-moving but tough, sent their defense platforms to help guard freed worlds. Admiral Foster welcomed them all. Soon it was not just a human fleet. It was a coalition. Ships from 6 different species, all working together, all united by one simple idea. The Ravagers had to be stopped. Lena watched it happen from the ground level. She saw Quillan volunteers working alongside human medics, saw Trell pilots teaching human fighter crews their scouting techniques, saw Kelmar engineers helping repair human ships faster. "They are following our example," Rodriguez said one day as they watched a mixed crew load supplies. "We showed them it could be done. That someone could stand up to the Ravagers and win. Now they want to fight too." The Ravagers tried to adapt. They started retreating faster, avoiding direct fights, calling in reinforcements. But it did not matter. For every Ravager fleet they gathered, the coalition had more ships, more volunteers, more species who were tired of being afraid. News spread across the galaxy. The species the Ravagers had terrorized started talking. sharing intelligence, pointing out Ravager bases. Humanity had lit a spark and it was growing into a fire. Greshk felt it too. He sat in what remained of his command center on a hidden base, watching reports come in. His fleet was down to 18 ships, 7 outposts destroyed, 3 slave camps liberated. His warriors were afraid. Afraid. Ravagers did not feel fear, but they felt it now, and still the humans kept coming. They do not stop, Drask said, his wounds still bandaged. We retreat, they follow. We hide, they find us. We fight, we lose. What are they? Greshk had no answer. He had studied the humans after that first battle, learned their history. What he found terrified him more than their weapons. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. War was in their blood, their culture, their DNA. They had built weapons that could destroy their own planet. They had killed millions of their own kind. And then they stopped. Chose peace, chose to be better. But they had not forgotten how to fight. They had just been waiting for a reason. They are soldiers without a war, Greshk said quietly. We gave them a war. We gave them a reason to use all that terrible skill. We made them remember what they could do. So what do we do? Greshk looked at the star map showing human fleet movements, looked at his own dwindling forces, looked at the reports of more species joining the coalition every day. We run. We go to the homeworld. Gather everything we have left. Make our final stand there. The elders will never allow surrender. Then the elders will die, because these humans will not stop until we are gone. Greshk pulled up the message Foster had sent at Refuge. Listened to it again. They said the age of predators is over. I think they meant it. He sent word to all remaining Ravager forces. Fall back to Thresh, their homeworld. Prepare for the humans. Prepare for the end. Meanwhile, Lena helped the freed slaves onto transport ships heading to safe worlds. The little Quillen girl held her hand the whole time, refusing to let go until Lena promised to visit after the war. Will you win? The girl asked. Lena looked up at the stars where the rest of the fleet waited, where Admiral Foster was planning the next attack, where humans and aliens worked together to stop monsters. Yes, Lena said. We will win. The planet Thresh hung in space like a dark jewel. Ravager homeworld, fortress world. The place where their species was born and where they trained their warriors. Greshk had gathered every remaining ship here. 30 vessels orbiting a planet covered in military installations. It would be a bloodbath. Admiral Foster stood on the bridge of the Retribution, studying the scans of Thresh. His fleet had grown since Refuge. 90 human ships now, plus 40 more from the coalition species. 130 vessels against 30. The numbers favored him, but fortress worlds were dangerous. Greshk would fight to the death here. Sir, his communications officer said, we are receiving a transmission from the surface. It is Greshk. Put it through. Greshk's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than his images suggested. Tired, scared even though he tried to hide it. Human Admiral, I will not surrender. This is my world, my people. You will have to kill us all. Foster nodded slowly. I know. That is why I am not asking you to surrender. Greshk frowned, confused. Foster took a breath and made a choice that would define everything that came next. I am giving your people 6 hours to evacuate all civilian areas. Anyone not part of your military. Anyone who never chose to be a warrior. Children, elders, artists, farmers. Anyone who just wants to live in peace. Get them away from your military bases. 6 hours, silence on the channel. Greshk stared at Foster like he had spoken in an alien language. You are offering mercy? To us? After what we did? I am offering your civilians a choice. You made them into a warrior culture. You taught them that strength meant taking from others. But I do not believe every Ravager wants that life. Give them a chance to leave. After 6 hours, we attack only military targets. You could just kill us all, Greshk said quietly. Burn the whole planet. You have the weapons. Why show mercy to the species that showed none? Foster thought about Pym, dying with his grandchildren's names on his lips. Thought about Helen Wright, who heard someone crying and could not ignore it. Thought about all the freed slaves who asked why humans came when no one else did. Because we remember what it is like to be monsters, Foster said. My species spent thousands of years killing each other. We got very good at it. We built weapons that could end all life on Earth. We came very close to using them, but we stopped. We chose to be better. We chose to show mercy even when mercy seemed weak. That choice saved us. Maybe it can save you too. Greshk closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. You're either the wisest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. Maybe both. 6 hours, Greshk. After that, we come for your military. Only your military. Make your choice. Foster cut the transmission. His officers stood in silence. Colonel Webb finally spoke. Sir, what if he uses the time to reinforce his positions? What if this is a mistake? Then we will deal with it. But I will not start killing civilians without giving them a chance to run. The 6 hours passed slowly. Foster watched the scans of Thresh and waited. For the first hour, nothing happened. Then movement. Ships lifting off from civilian areas, transports, cargo vessels, personal craft. Thousands of them fleeing the cities near military bases. More and more kept coming. Ravager civilians leaving their homes because the humans had given them a choice their own leaders never did. They are running, Webb said, wonder in his voice. They are actually running, not all of them. Some stayed, loyal to Greshk or too afraid to believe the humans, but enough left that Foster knew his message had been heard. Enough left that he knew he had been right. When 6 hours ended, Foster gave the order. The human and coalition fleet opened fire, but not on cities, not on homes, only on military installations, weapons platforms, shipyards, command centers, orbital defense stations. The bombardment was precise, surgical. Every target verified before firing. Every shot accounted for. Greshk's fleet fought back hard. His warriors were good, well-trained, experienced. But they were also tired, outnumbered, and fighting an enemy that had already beaten them once. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 20 Ravager ships were destroyed. 10 were captured. Greshk's command ship was crippled but intact. Foster took a shuttle down to the surface with an honor guard. They landed near Greshk's command bunker and waited. Eventually the doors opened. Greshk walked out unarmed, his forearms hanging at his sides. He looked at Foster and knelt. We surrender. Do what you will with us. Foster helped him stand. I'm not here to conquer you. I am here to stop you from conquering others. What does that mean? It means your weapons are forfeit. Your warships will be dismantled. Your military will disband. But your people can stay. Your culture can continue. You just cannot hurt anyone else ever again. Greshk laughed bitterly. You think we can change? We are Ravagers. It is what we are. You were Ravagers because no one ever made you stop, Foster said. Because you could take what you wanted and no one fought back hard enough. That ends now. You have a choice, same as we did. Be better or be gone. Choose. Representatives from the coalition species landed around them. Quillans, Trell, Kelmar, and others. All of them had lost people to the Ravagers. All of them had the right to demand vengeance. Instead, they offered treaties, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, a place in the galactic community if the Ravagers could earn it. Greshk looked at them all and felt something crack inside him. These species should hate him, should want him dead. Instead, they offered a future. Why? He whispered. Why give us this chance? A Quillan elder stepped forward, one who had survived refuge, one who had lost family. Because the humans taught us something. Mercy is not weakness. It is strength. The strength to break cycles of violence. The strength to choose hope over hate. They showed us. Now we show you. 3 months later, Helen Wright returned to refuge. The moon was being rebuilt. Humans, Quillans, Trell, Kelmar, even some Ravagers worked together, raising new buildings where old ones had burned. The scars were still there, but life was returning. She stood at a memorial wall where names were carved. Thousands of names. Millions eventually. All the people who died when no one answered their call. Pym's name was there near the top. A young Quillan approached her. Helen recognized the girl from the slave camp, the one who had asked Lena if humans were angels. Thank you, the girl said in careful standard, for hearing us. For coming. Helen knelt down and hugged her. We will always come. That is a promise. If you call, we will answer. News of what happened at Thresh spread across the galaxy faster than light. The story changed as it traveled, growing into legend. But the core truth remained. Humanity had crossed the stars to answer a distress call from strangers. Had fought a war to protect people not their own. Had shown mercy to an enemy that deserved none. Other species started listening for distress calls now. Started helping neighbors. Started believing that maybe the galaxy could be better than it was. Admiral Foster retired a year later. At his ceremony, he was asked what he was most proud of. that we heard someone crying and we did not look away. He said simply that when they sent an SOS to the stars, humanity's reply was, "We are coming. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be." In the darkness between stars, there are those who prey on the weak. But now the weak know something they did not before. If you send an SOS, humanity will reply, and they will bring vengeance for every tear you shed. Not vengeance born from hate, but from the simple belief that no one should die alone in the dark, calling for help that never comes. Never again means never again, for anyone, anywhere, always.